Hello, everybody. Welcome today to our i-Portunus briefing around the call for House's call underneath the artist mobility for Creative Europe. I'm Aoife Tunney, and my two colleagues Leona Cully and Katie Lowry join me today. And we're going to talk you through this new call, which has just been launched. It's open at the moment, and what it means for applicants, both artists, individuals, practitioners, or hosts as organizations. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, Katie. So as I said, as an applicant to host, you can be an organization or an established individual artist to apply for this House's call. Just to say, sorry, at the outset, we are recording the event today so we can provide it for other people who might have missed it today. And also, if you could mute yourself, which you've all done, and have your cameras off. And we will have Leona will take your questions through the chat. I think she's put a message in there already through the chat function. We can have a little Q&A at the end if you have any questions for us. And just to say that the i-Portunus call, this is the last of the calls for the program up until the end of 2020. So it's still just following on from the end of the budget from that program. And now going forward, there will be more calls in 2022 around the artist mobility for the next program, 2021 to 2027. But it'll also be a permanent call. So i-Portunus was a pilot, which was launched in 2019. There were 3 calls for artists around Europe, and Ireland did quite well in terms of artists being successful going on mobility projects around Creative Europe countries and destinations. And now this is kind of the tail end of that. But these will also be permanent calls for hosts to apply for mobility funding. So just to say that hosts can be organizations or established individual artists or cultural professionals, as you said, and it is to encourage people to team up together with 2 or 5 artists and or cultural professionals to apply for a collaboration project. The UK are also eligible to apply under this call. Your applicants need to be legally residing in different Creative Europe countries, so coming together from different countries in the Creative Europe zone, with the intention to work together on one or more collaboration projects. So the scheme is open for all cultural sectors, except the audiovisual is the only one not kind of applicable under. And if we could go to the next slide, Katie, thanks. So what is it for? This new scheme is to focus on hosts and the value of hosts providing efficient and safe residencies and working environments for artists and cultural professionals. So i-Portunus Houses provides the financial support to the host. So for sub-granting the cost of mobility, that is transport, accommodation to the artist or the cultural professionals or the team members. And the hosts can apply for one collaboration project, which is up to 5 artists or cultural professionals, or they can apply to have 5 collaboration projects engaging a minimum of 1 artist in those projects. So thanks, Katie, sorry. So yeah, a minimum of 1 artist or cultural professional per project. But this host will have to receive a minimum of 2 artists or cultural professionals in total, I guess, to make it a kind of collaboration project. And the next slide, if we can, Katie, thanks a million. So the objectives of the call, of this mobility call, is around either one of the following. So it's around creation, to create or co-create an artistic work, a production or a performance, or to connect, so around networking, internationalization of your practice or your career, to learn, to increase your competencies, professional development, and to explore. So one of these. So to research future collaborations or projects. And so what are the what is part of this call is both physical mobility and a mix of virtual mobility. So as we have all come to know, what that is a blended option. The host can apply for virtual participation, cannot apply for virtual participation only, so it has to be physical mobility and virtual mobility. In total, i-Portunus, the call will invest a maximum of 30% of the mobility. So the overall funding pot for this will be 30% towards virtual participation. So I guess that's a kind of guide to how much you will apportion the virtual participation in your own application. So the majority of it will be for physical mobility. Yeah, so how much? So the cost, the host is the applicant, so they receive the full grant for all collaboration projects and team members. And of that total amount, they can only receive 10%, the host themselves. The rest of the money, the rest of the grant will need to be sub-granted according to the type of mobilities in the request in the application. So there are different amounts for these kind of physical or virtual participation. So we'll look at them in a minute, but only 10% will go to the host itself. And the next slide. So the physical mobility first. So what this is, so it's support for virtual participation can only be rewarded in combination, as we said, so it has to be alongside a physical mobility. A sub-grant for the virtual participation will only be granted to a non-traveling team member or group, and that will be once as part of this project. So each host can claim a maximum of one hosting fee in total once the virtual participation becomes part of the collaboration project. So as we said, there are different amounts for the sub-grant for virtual versus physical, depending on the focus of the collaboration. So we'll look at an example of how that will work out in terms of costs. So how to apply? So you will have to create your own account on the i-Portunus website. If we can go back, sorry, Katie, I can read it there. You will give your personal details, you know, evidence of your education, your work experience, and then kind of details of the plan mobility. So the proposal, including dates, destination, means of transport, information on your project, what the need for the mobility is, the description, the impact it will have on the artist's career, on their practice. And then you might be asked for feedback on this whole process, because it is part of kind of a pilot, and they always like to use the information going forward. So the documents that you will need, one-page CV per artist, an artistic CV or a portfolio, so evidence of your work, maximum 10 pages, a declaration of honor, so that'll be both for the host and for the individual applying. So a declaration of honor is just to basically confirm that you are not working with or employed in collaboration with the group, the consortia that run i-Portunus. So you can look that up on the website. It is a consortia of 4 or 5 organizations. So as long as your proposal isn't in collaboration with them or you are not employed by them, then you are fine. You have a declaration of honor. You will also need to confirm, if you're an organization, you confirm your charitable status. So this is all will be kind of pre-populated in the application form. So you will put there, you will give your registered charity number. Then you will need documents such as supporting documents, supporting the mobility plan, invitation letters, co-production agreements, contracts and partners with partners or organizations or artists or institutions. So these, yeah, will all have to be uploaded. And then, so the physical mobility. So we look at this as an example, so it kind of makes sense. So we'll also give you this PowerPoint, so you can kind of look that up yourselves, but it makes sense when you look at it, at how it will work out in a kind of physical budget. But team members will receive a minimum of €1,500 to complete a mobility of 7 days, so minimum 7 days. And for each extra day on top of that, it is €30 per day. And that's with a maximum then of €3,000 per each each per team member. And for physical mobilities, the host, as we said earlier, can claim it's a maximum of 10% on top of the total of the sub grants requested in the proposal. So we'll see that again in a second with the actual budget laid out. And then the virtual mobility. So there's again a minimum of 7 days at €100 or €150 per day. That's depending on your what your proposal is. So if it's to create as an option within the mobility, so then the cost will be for production costs, hardware, software. That'll be 1,500 altogether for those 7 days. If it's to connect, so looking at maybe software, facilitation fees, sub-grant for the non-traveling team member, that is €1,000. And if it's to learn, like training, facilitation fees, software, again, it's €1,000. And to explore, so research, your tools, etc., that's €1,000. So then here is the kind of table laid out. It makes a little bit more sense. So one host and 2 traveling team members and 1 non-traveling team member. So team member A visits for 9 days. It's the 1,500, which is the minimum for the 7 days. And then because it's 9 days, they have 2 more. So you add on 2 extra €30 per day. And that obviously you can figure that out yourself, but it kind of breaks it down there. If the team member then is visiting for 11 days, then you work that one out. And then if the member C is only joining for online, they will receive a virtual participation fee of €1,000. It also breaks down that the reason for this is a connect. So this is a connect mobility proposal. So the fees are allocated because of that kind of option as a connect mobility proposal. So you can go to the website and you'll see there's more details and documents around the kind of those, which way it'll work out depending on what your focus is on your proposal. And then, as I said there, the link there for the proposal and the call itself is up on the i-Portunus website. There's also on the website, you'll see these details, but it's just to look at it here. It's the Market Square. So they're hosting kind of weekly information and matching sessions for hosts, for artists and cultural professionals to kind of prepare new teams to meet new potential partners around co-designing and submitting a joint proposal. So there are new online dates coming up, the 9th, the 16th and the 23rd of June. Between 2 and 5. So obviously check them out. I mean, 2 to 5, they're 3-hour slots, so maybe they're broken down. But also to say that the i-Portunus team are really amazing. We've done, this is our 5th i-Portunus event, and we've kind of been in touch with them before and afterwards, and they do get back. So if you have any more technical questions, do get in touch with them directly, or obviously get in touch with us as well. And the next slide. So just, your eligibility. Applications must be made in English and then through the portal, as I said, so it's on i-Portunus.eu by the deadline. So I'll give you the dates in a moment. They're very strict about the deadline, and also remember that it's Central European time. It's not Irish European time, to keep an eye on that. So all the application details, all the documents you will need to have ready to upload. You need to be 18 plus and residents, as I said, in a Creative Europe country, and the destination of the mobility and the artist must also be a Creative Europe country as well. And the next slide, So what should the money be spent on? So i-Portunus houses mobility is intended to help costs to cover expenses for mobility of the team members, i.e. transport, accommodation, subsistence for physical mobilities, production costs, software, facilitation fees for virtual participation. So quite a good list of the type of costs you could put in your proposal. And again, as another cost, if you are an artist with a disability, there's additional mobility support can be provided for artists and creators and cultural professionals with a disability. You should self-declare this, and with your access needs, and financial support will be based on a case-by-case basis. And as I said, do get in touch with i-Portunus, the team around this, if you want to just make sure you're kind of self-declaring in the right way or whatever. They will get back to you and make sure that you can get your declaration in to get those additional costs. And then, so the dates. So it is open on the i-Portunus website. There's call already. The submission date is the 30th of June. So it's 1800 hours Central European time. You will find out the results on the 2nd of August. The earliest date of departure is the 30th of June this year, and the latest date of return is the 31st of May 2022. So that's, yeah, obviously next year. And just as saying at the outset there that in the last, those calls as part of the pilot, and actually we just had the end, which was still part of the pilot, was the last 4 calls was in the beginning of this year. And we have 12 overall i-Portunus Mobility Awards were funded to Irish artists that they were under music, architecture, theatre, visual arts, dance and curatorial practice. And they traveled to Serbia, Germany, Portugal, Denmark. So they all had great reports, and we do have their kind of testimonials in our latest publication. We can send you the link for that as well around those i-Portunus projects. And then there's just a list of our upcoming events. We have a heritage event and an architecture event both next week. So we'd love you to come along if you're interested. We'll send you the information. We can follow that up with the PowerPoint, and we'll give you those details to register for those events next week. And that's kind of it. If we want to all come back on, and if you have any questions, I don't know, Leon, if there were any questions, but if you have any now's the time.
Yeah, there's a couple here. So someone would just like to clarify what a charitable status means, and is it the same thing as not for profit?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, exactly.
That was Clara, actually. Yeah. And then here's from Sheila. Can you clarify if the team member can be a member of staff of the host, and therefore if their costs can be covered by mobility support, or is this intended for independent artists and cultural workers?
You are on mute. My understanding is it's actually for artists and cultural workers as separate to the host.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi, can I ask a follow on? When you're talking about the explore element of that, when you're thinking about research for potential partnerships, I mean, is that's I suppose where I'm coming from in terms of asking about the team members. It just seems like a great opportunity to have a combination of staff and artists thinking about future projects.
I think that's definitely, my understanding would be that that is a part of the project. And I know the Commission, you know, the idea that i-Portunus could be used as kind of a grounding or a preparation for a larger kind of transnational European project is definitely the intention, but it's just in terms of where you're allocating the budget. So I think that would give a lot of value to your project. And I completely, you know, you're selecting people to come over and you're selecting them to engage with your staff and kind of work together. But I think in terms of where the budget can go, that's a different issue.
Okay, so we could pay for somebody from another institution to come to work with us in exploring, or to spend time with us exploring, and artists and cultural workers as well. So they don't necessarily need to be independent, but they can't be from the host organization. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's no more questions here in the chat. Does anyone want to pop on or?
I mean, I think what I would say about the process, because we've been through it, and of the kind of calls that came out this year, we have had an Irish applicant come through each time. It's quite a light touch process. I think it's very, you know, the language around this is kind of confusing, and even we took ages to figure out how they were structuring the budget, but just to kind of say, even just to go on and register for an account and see how the form works. I mean, a lot of times it's an automatic budget calculation. It's quite a unique opportunity in terms of, I guess, the process in European terms being quite accessible. So it's definitely something to consider. I think there'll be other calls. This isn't your last opportunity, but definitely.
Okay, and then Lisa has a question there in the chat. She'll ask it, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just curious. We're here in North Kerry, and we have an organic farm, and we'd love to host international artists looking around ideas of climate change and biodiversity. But when I was looking at it, I thought, you know, where it says 10% of the host, is it like, you know, does the host have to provide all the food and accommodation for the 10%, or does that come out of the budget for the people coming? That was the only thing I wasn't sure about.
Yeah, I think the 1,500, the minimum. So what if it's 7 days, let's say, and the minimum is 1,500. So the accommodation will come out of that. So that sub grant goes to your artist and their accommodation, because yeah, it lists that as that's one of the costs for them. Perfect. Now, I think food as well makes sense, because 10% is too little for you to cover.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to figure out. I thought I couldn't possibly feed people and put them up for a week for 1,500 or for 150 euros. So I was just trying to figure out if it came out of their fee, or if I was going abroad that it would come out of my fee, I would have assumed. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
And then just to say as well that climate and sustainability is kind of a cross-program priority now for the Commission. And there's actually a section in the form that asks you to specifically address the topic. So I think if you're working in that area, that's a real kind of strength to your proposal.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. We just bought the bell tents. The fields are ready and the meadows are high.
Oh, amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's great. It's really exciting. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, anything else? I'm just trying to think of, and I mean, it's quite a short turnaround, like the deadline is on the 30th of June. So if you have any other questions around your proposal, or even just around, I don't know, those hosting sessions to meet partners, potential partners that the i-Portunus are running, just if there's any issue with that, or, you know, if you want any more information, do get in touch with us soon, I suppose, because yeah, you'd be needing to develop it.
Perfect.